1.
G'day folks, this is Dragon. Just a gear review on alcohol stoves. This is a commercial one I bought a couple of weeks ago. I like to do gear reviews on commercial gear. It's not something I would use at the coalface myself, but some of this gear I keep in the background as an option in case I do need it. So I'm doing one on an alcohol burner, and I've got to say that I'm pretty impressed with this one so far. Basically, the kit comes with a container that it sits in. That's made out of metal. It's got air vents punched into it, 4 of them around the sides there. It comes with what we call a snuffer. That's to put the flame out. And also, as I referred to in the video I made last night, or part of this video, that's the flapper. So that gives you a better control burn if you don't need so much heat, and it can be a fuel saver. So that just clips back down into place. To use it as a snuffer, you just drop it down on top of the flame, like we did last night in the night video of this. The lid on this is a screw lid. The can itself is made out of tin, or probably steel, would be steel. It's probably anodised with something to make it all pretty in gold. The lid on it has a rubber seal in it, which is good, and I'll explain why that is later. Also, it's a double chambered design. If we have a look, you've got the inner chamber here where you put the fuel, and there's a cavity between the inner chamber and the outside of it that's got wicking in it. And what that wicking does is draw the alcohol fuel up to these vapor jets around here, and as you saw last night, as it heats up the alcohol, the vapor increases, and eventually the vapor jets light up and it burns very cleanly. The reason why I did it last night was to show you the burn pattern on it. Was that during the day you really can't see a flame with a lot of alcohol burners on it, particularly this one. Now, how does the alcohol get up into the wicking? I don't know if you can get a close up of this, mate. In the bottom of the chamber there's 4 holes. There's one there. Okay, should be diagonally opposite. I can't see because I'm on the wrong angle here. So that allows the fuel to be soaked up by the wicking between the inner chamber and the outside of the can. Some of that little black thread in there, that's actually some of the wicking that's come out. And of course the bottom of this inner chamber is not sealed in other places, so there's plenty of room there for flow by the wicking effect of the what they're using in here between the 2 chambers. Now the specs say that 100 mils of alcohol will give you a 45-minute burn, and when I initially got this and did the initial burn on it, it did. It burnt for 45 minutes just on 100 millilitres of alcohol fuel, or roughly just over 3 fluid ounces. But as I said last night, you've got to bear in mind ambient air temperatures and all that sort of stuff. These are good, have good applications in areas where there's very little to burn. High alpine areas, desert areas, that sort of place, arid places. Certainly in very wet conditions where you can't light a normal fire or having a lot of trouble. And for the Australian members, I did check with the Rural Fire Brigade last week. These can be used in a total fire ban situation. That is from the Rural Fire Brigade in Queensland. For cooking, as quote unquote boiling water as well. One thing he did mention, the guy from the Rural Fire Services, was that it's better to have a cleared area around here, 1 metre radius, I think he said, or 2 metres in diameter. That's to get rid of any leaf litter or anything like that, just in case you have a spillage or something like that. So it's a good practice in any type of fire alert status in Australia. It's a habit to get into. Doesn't take much to start a fire in Australia, so the good point is you can use these in total fire means. So what we'll do, it's a bit windy today, what I did find was that this does not provide a very good wind guard, and I'll show you another one soon. There's a lot of wind gets in here and blows the flame around, and of course when you're trying to heat something up, a lot of the heat is dissipated by the wind, and of course you're using more fuel to heat it up. Also too, these have a dual purpose or dual use. Is that in the event that you don't want to use alcohol or you run out of alcohol, you can put solid fuel tablets in there too, be that hexamine. You could also use this with hexamine or some other form of solid fuel tablet, including wet fire, if you're having problems getting a fire going under damp or wet conditions. That is metal, so it's not going to damage it too much. So you just sit your tablet in there, or your wet fire, and build your dry kindling up or even damp kindling over the top, and just flash her up and away she goes. So that's another use for that. Alright, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, we'll flash this one up. I'll put some alcohol in there. Here it goes. It's a bit hard to see in daylight, that's why I did the night vid last night. Wait for it to warm up until all the vapour jets around the side actually start producing flame. Should be pretty close now, it's a bit hard to see in daylight. What I've got here is a billy, aluminium billy. I've got 1 cup of water in it. It sits on top like that. So when you're using this, it's got to be on level ground, because otherwise it's going to be fairly unstable. If you need to put more water in either to boil water or to use hot water for dehydrated foods, then you may need more water. That's why the base has got to be on very stable ground. The other thing is aluminium, okay, and I mentioned it last night and I'll go on with it today. Aluminium equipment, cans, cups, that sort of thing, are very good, very light, and a lot of people use them. No problems with that. The problem with aluminium is it doesn't hold heat very well. It dissipates very quickly, and in situations like this, you need the fuel has to heat the aluminium and keep reheating it a lot more than one of these. I use these steel pannikins. They don't take as much heat or sustained heat to warm up and keep hot compared to aluminium. So it may be something you need to be aware of. For me, I'd rather use steel. I know it's a little bit heavier, but as far as fuel saving goes, the heating up of these and these retaining the heat while it's on some sort of fire source reduces the use of fuel, particularly in an alcohol situation. The other thing you've got to remember is too, I mentioned last night ambient air temperatures. That also affects your cooking utensils and also water. Now this water came out of the rainwater tank, and it's probably about 10 degrees C. So to bring that up to a boil, it's probably going to take quite a lot of fuel. Similarly, in alpine areas where you've got to melt snow to make it into drinkable water, you don't eat snow, you melt it first. It's going to take considerable heat to melt the snow first, and then bring it up to a boil if you need to sterilise it. So that's a few things to think about, folks. The specs say yes, 100 mils in 45 minutes. but they may change on for a variety of reasons. I put a post on there not long ago about how altitude affects boiling point of water. We're about 2,000 feet above sea level here, so that's something you've got to take into consideration too. With the alcohol stoves, the alcohol we get here in Australia is in plastic bottles like that, and for the people that use them a lot, campers, hikers, even survivalists, not a good idea to carry in your pack. These are aluminium bottles, got a rubber seal on them, and you can store the alcohol in there, so it doesn't leak, very robust, and that probably count, how much is that, 1 litre? You're probably looking about 3/4 of a litre in rough comparison. The other point I'd like to make too is when boiling water, that side's clean, put a lid over the top of your container, stops a lot of heat loss. As the water's heating up to a boil, water's not a very good conductor of heat, and it certainly doesn't hold heat for very long. So as it's heating up, there's a lot of heat coming out of that can, out of that billy from the water. So to conserve fuel again, just put a top on it, something like that. Okay, that will help it boil a lot faster and save you fuel. Okay, we're running a bit short of time today, so I won't bring this up to a boil. That's burning quite well. The wind is knocking around a bit, as you can see there. We've got variable winds and they're a little bit on the gusty side. We found the most sheltered place we could find. If you have a look in there, you can see that alcohol getting hot. It's bubbling. All right. So that helps it give it a more consistent burn. Now once you've finished using it as a heating source, cooking, boiling water, whatever the case may be, you put this, what we call a snuffer, on it. Just drop it over the top. Puts the flame out, it saves you fuel. A couple of safety things with this is when it's full of fuel and you're putting it into place where you're going to light it. If you get a fuel spill, wait for it to evaporate off, because alcohol will evaporate very quickly. The other thing, if you need to refuel these during a cooking or boiling water process, wait until these cool right down. If you try and fill them up while they're still hot, with alcohol you're likely to get a flash fire. You certainly don't want that. That's virtually not very far away from your face. So you've got to wait for this to cool right down. It takes about, I did test it here, it takes about 5 minutes, a little bit longer than 5 minutes if you need to refuel it. The other thing I found with these was, if you want to save your fuel, and it's got the rubber O-ring on it, is that when the fuel gets low, you snuff it out, the fuel level in the inner chamber actually rises, because the wicking effect and the heat is releasing fuel back into the inner chamber. That's why it's got the rubber O-ring on it. So if you've got fuel in there, rather than try and pour it back in your container, which you can if you want to, the rubber O-ring on it, screw it on top, seals it so you don't have any vapour escaping or fuel leaks in your backpack or whatever. And of course it saves fuel. Alternatively, when you've used these first use these after a long storage of time, when the wicking's dried out and there's no more fuel in there, if you put 100 mils of fuel in there, you're going to find that the wicking's going to soak it up. So you need to keep an eye on that level of fuel. Okay, they're good. Not exactly compact for a backpack, but for weekenders, camping, trekkers, certainly alpine areas and other areas where virtually this is your only heating source you're going to get, where there's a shortage of natural fire materials, yeah, it's you're going to have to fit it in your pack somewhere along with fuel, and you've got to realise that you've only got a limited amount of fuel in these. So when and wherever possible, it's probably a good idea to use other fire materials, natural materials, rather than use this all the time if you can get away with it, because once all that fuel's gone, that's it. So bit of conservation on fuel there. Alright folks, now the next one I'll do is something I was experimenting with yesterday, I think it was. Another bit of kit I bought to do a review on was what they call a Vargo fire stove, wood heater. Now I won't do a full review on this one today, but what I did find was, and it's from the night video, is that these are very good for alcohol burners too. In that, as I said last night, they concentrate the heat coming off that burner, and they also form a very good wind guard around there. So we'll be back in a second. I'll set that up and just give you a demo on that. Remember, this is not a equipment evaluation on the Vargo wood burner, but another use for it. So back in a sec, folks. Right folks, what we'll do now is I'll show this Vargo wood stove being used as a windshield, and this is something I found, I don't know, probably by accident or thinking outside the box a bit. It's not a full review on this, and the night burn last night we did one of these. So I'll flash it up, and before I do, wildflies behind the camera brought up a very good point, which I neglected to mention, is that when you snuff this out with the snuffer, wait till it cools right down before you put that cap back on it. Otherwise you get a pressure build up inside, and it can also damage, the heat can damage the rubber seal. Okay, so on that point you've got to wait until they cool right down before you screw that cap back on. Similarly with the small hole on the top of the flapper here, remembering that's hot alcohol in there when you put the snuffer on to put the flame out, so that's just a vent to vent the hot alcohol fumes. A bit of a safety thing, I guess, I don't know, but it's certainly a vent hole, so you've got to you know, keep that clean and clear. So it's a very good point brought up by Wildflies, who's behind the camera. All right.
And the when tipping your fuel back into your container, obviously make sure that your unit's cooled right down.
Yes, definitely so. Alcohol's good, burns clean and all the rest of it. Very little smell. In fact, in a stealth situation, the smell of cooking food will give you away a lot faster than alcohol. But as Wildflies mentioned, is make sure this is cooled right down if you're trying to salvage your fuel back into one of these containers. It's very volatile, very flammable, as most of I think all the members on the forum would know that. So it doesn't take much for it to flash up. As I said, you know, I'm using a fire steel here, just one spark and that's it. Static electricity is another problem too with some of the gear, so be aware of that too. Alrighty, light this up. Oh, I'm a terrible shot today, I can't get the spark in there. There it goes. I think. Is that burning?
Yeah, I can see it.
Feel the heat on the face. Yep. Right. Fortunately, with this particular size of Vargo wood stove, I think you can get them bigger sizes. I had trouble last night getting this alcohol fuel burner back inside, so what I did today was just open up the flap a bit more. It comes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hinge flaps, so I've just opened up a bit more, makes it easier to light and put in there. So you can close that up, It's still burning. Just see a bit of a flicker there. And I'll use a steel one this time. I'm not going to do a full burn on this because we run a shorter time. But that, you can see there, the wind is affecting it a little bit, but not as much as it was with this one here. So these little Vargo wood stoves do make good wind shields for them. Of course, yeah, it won't work in gale force winds, but the wind's pretty gusty here today and variable from all directions. So by doing that, you're not losing a lot of heat out this way. As I said last night, most of the heat is funneled up to the bottom of the container, which is a fuel saver. Then you don't have to use so much fuel. Again, to help the water heat up quickly or faster, a bit hard with these ones. Sometimes I carry old coffee tin lids around in my pack or in my vehicle. Just throw that over the top. You can leave a little bit of hole there so that some of it can vent out. It doesn't really matter, it's not jammed on, so I like to leave a little bit of a hole there. And so there's not so much heat escaping from the water as it's heating up. So that, again, that's another fuel saver. You're not using more fuel to heat up water that's losing heat through an open top like that. So that is burning much better than this one, isn't it, mate?
Yeah. You're still getting enough airflow in.
Yeah.
From underneath here.
You can get aluminium ones, types of these. Some of them have the folded handles on them. I have used them. I don't particularly like them. That's myself personally. For a couple of reasons. Again, heat loss due to aluminium. The folded handles are a bit of a problem on a much bigger fire because you've got to try and get to it and get it off without burning yourself. And the other thing is that aluminium, yes, it's light, but I have seen aluminium ones of these crushed. Someone's had taken a tumble in the bush or something like that, something's fallen heavy on it, a water bottle sits in there. It's what I've got on my bush belt, and I've seen them crushed. And depending on how bad it is, you may be able to push it back into shape, but once aluminium crushes and sometimes creases, you try and bend it back into shape and it'll just open up on you. So that's probably something to think about. That's my personal gear, and I much prefer to use this. It's steel, a lot harder to crush, holds the heat a lot longer, reduces fuel usage, and yeah, you've got bubbles coming up the bottom of that now. And that's got the same amount of water in it as this aluminium one. And that's without the lid on it too. So that's coming up to almost simmer. Anyway, folks, that's that. That's just a review on it. There's lots of alcohol stoves out there. This is just one particular one that caught my interest. And
how much are these sort of, like, you could probably, you know, pick them up from different sorts, but how much would you say something like this might be worth?
Well, this one I found online, and I think it was around about $30. It came in from overseas. The Australian ones, I've got them in Australia, but they're much more expensive, and they come from the same factory. So yeah, I think it was around about $30 odd. The thing is, yes, you can make your own. There's no problems with that. But what attracted my attention was that the double chamber and the wicking in it gives you a much better control burn and probably more fuel efficient than some of the homemade ones, like out of aluminium cans and things like that.
Probably easy to start too.
Probably easy to start too. By all means, make your own. There's various designs. The thing is, you've got to get the design right, much as with rocket stoves, wood gasifying stoves, to get the burn right so that everything works integrated well, so that you're getting maximum fishy out. efficiency out of it. So,
but you also get the cap and the snuffer too.
yes,
So,
yes.
it all fits, you know.
It all fits together. It's a very good integrated unit. So this is the only field testing I've done here at home. I think it would be a long-term thing, provided it's looked after and the jets are kept clean, as long as they don't fill up with dirt and muck and stuff like that. So it's fairly compact. I mean, like I said, there's different designs of alcohol stage airs. Some of them are pressurised, some aren't. But this is a fairly compact little kit, barring this. But like I said,
And that came with it, didn't it?
that came with it. Yes,
Yeah.
that was part of the kit. So
Probably
no.
protects it.
you've got to look at these things. That's burning quite well. Okay, I'll just put the snuffer on it. Put it out. Also, another thing with this, if you're going to use something like this, you can use natural material in the bush to make windbreaks and that sort of stuff. That's fine. But if you're using metal type windbreaks, just be aware too that they do get very hot, particularly this one. I found out by accident last night. So you've got to wait for everything to cool down. So that'll take about 5 or 10 minutes, which in the overall scheme of things is pretty good. So there it is, folks. That's a gear review on that. It's made by Alox, ALOCS. I've only been able to test it at home. I haven't been able to get out in the bush and do it, but so far it's looking pretty good. It's not something I would use or carry it with me at the coalface, but it's an option there where if I'm going into a situation and making a fire is going to be a problem, then I can take that with me. So that's pretty well it, folks. So yeah, great. You can buy them, make your own. It's up to you. You know, you've got to look at fuel efficiency, particularly alcohol fuels stoves, because you can only carry so much of the stuff. So that's something you've really got to look at. Thanks very much for watching.